Welcome to the Service MVP podcast, everyone. And my name is Joe Crisara, America's Service Sales Coach. We have with us today a very special guest, Helena Bouchez, who she runs a company called Executive Words. Helena is like she's a secret superpower behind a lot of powerful people, such as she's written books for Frank Blau. She's written books for a book with Al Levy. She did Tommy Mello's Home Service Millionaire, and she was the person who did the writing and editing and design of the book What Should We Do by Joe Crisara as well. Welcome, Helena. How you doing today?
Thanks. I'm doing great. Thanks for this, for inviting me.
Well, you know what? I couldn't think of anybody better who has read more of Joe Crisara's material than you. You probably you win the blue ribbon for reading all of the material several hundred times. We dumped a bunch of information on Helena with hundreds of hours of videos and things like that. And Helena, tell us what that was like to go through all that stuff. And it's a daunting task, right? Tell us what that was like.
Well, for one, it was just amazing to see the evolution of your system from the very beginning to what it's come into now, and to really understand where pure emotive service comes from, and from your own experience, from being out in the field and getting your knees skinned and whatnot. So yeah, it was an experience, and it was a lot of stuff, but it was a joy to go through. It was really fun. I went through the whole course, and I took the tests too. I
Nice. Now
passed.
she did pass. She passed. She could be a service. She could be. She might be able to be apply for a job if you need anybody who is
Right.
really knows the system. She does know it.
Yeah.
But Helena, thanks for being here again because I definitely think nobody could speak from a more objective point of view than you because you had to write this stuff, and I think you have to when you write something like this, you have to kind of believe and you start to adopt some of the stuff as you're writing it, and it starts to change you as well. So let's just talk
Mhm.
about a list of some of the things. What do you think that you saw here that you think? Because I know you had some of your own stories too, like when you said, "Yeah, when you said this, it reminded me of an electrician I hired," and you went over that
Oh
kind of a thing.
yeah.
So you saw how the material directly impacted you as a consumer. So what are the things that you think? Based on what you read in the book, give us a small book report, a verbal book report, if you don't mind, about some of the things that you think were the most impactful that could help contractors succeed with increasing their revenue and sales and profit. You want to go ahead and get started? What's like the most important underlying thing that you would say was the highest priority that salespeople or service people can do to kind of keep this in mind when they're kind of out there doing
Right.
their calls with consumers?
I would say, give people all the options, because I think that was the biggest change for me working on this book was, like I would do the discovery, I would have all the intelligence, and I would know where all the problems are. But my mom was definitely in my truck because, I would be like, oh, it's a lot of money and whatnot. And I think the difference between before working with you and after is like, I like give everybody all the options. I give them the Cadillac premium Tesla options, and I leave it up to them to figure out like where they fit in that continuum. And I've been very surprised, and as probably the people who study with you, is just if you just tell them what's available and stop trying to have that tourniquet or that governor on what's possible from a money standpoint, the sky opens up. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, actually, give everybody a heads up. When Helena came to me, she didn't know the system, so she just gave me a price on writing the book, and then she said that we could also do. I'll talk about the other stuff we can do later. I'm like, no, Helena, create a premium mid-range
Right.
economy package, as we don't want to be nickel and dime later. Just tell us
Right.
everything we need to get done, from the design of the book, the cover, who's going to edit this thing, who's going to make
Mhm.
the way the book is designed laid out, who's going to. I don't want to be like, okay, now you owe me 5,000 for this, or now you owe me. And so just tell me what it is. And so, to her surprise, we did buy. Which package did we buy, Helena? You remember?
You bought the top option, baby. You
What
bought
the
the top option. It was
The
like,
only thing, the
oh.
only thing she was mad about, she didn't. I should have priced it higher. No, she didn't say that. She said, "You know what? It's a fair price." And you know what? She experienced the joy of the system by.
Mhm.
I tell people all the time that I try to train service providers who even sell me to say, "Hey, I'm teaching this stuff. I want to hear you give me some solutions." And I had to sometimes teach the service provider. I had air conditioning put in my house. I had to teach a guy who was uninformed how to do that, and he didn't. He was shocked that I bought the better. He thought it was a trapper. I'm not sure what he thought, but he did wind up getting the premium option there too. Again, but truthfully, that's it. I think that when you offer the options, you kind of free yourself from having to
Mhm.
kind of upsell later on, like from that part. Helena, I mean, you're the kind of person who doesn't look like you push people into things. Did you kind of recognize that? Yeah, once I show them the prices, then everything else is now available to them, and they can choose their freedom to choose on their own. What do you think of that?
Well, I think for especially with somebody in your position and the people that I work for, like they're hiring me because I can manage the project from their idea to actually book in hand and beyond, right? So they know I have all the pieces of it. And so what good does it do for me to only give half of the equation when they can experience this peace of mind knowing that if they trade some money they can just not worry about this project and they can know it's all under control and it's going to happen flawlessly. So yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest thing, the biggest head flip for me is that it's really a gift to the client to tell them all of what's going to be involved because it's actually a relief knowing that somebody has control of all the pieces.
Yeah, and that's what we experienced as consumers of your service, is that we were able to focus on our actual business and not the business of writing a book. You focused on the business of writing a book, so we didn't have to. And of course, we did have to. We had I think every couple of weeks, every month at least, we had meetings to kind of review what was going on and kind of
Mm-hmm.
adjust it. But it's kind of much easier to adjust something that was being done. It's very similar to a plumber or air conditioning guy. Here's everything we think you need, but then the consumer
Mm-hmm.
has a chance to modify, or I think we need more cool air in that bedroom. Can we get an extra duct over there? I mean, oh, you can run new ducts. Can you make it a bigger one so that bedroom's cooler? Because my daughter really needs that to be cooler in there. So then once you display all the stuff, then the consumer can start playing around with the things you have because now they know what you have. Make sense there, Helena?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is if you are charging enough for your services, if you come across a plus that isn't, that maybe will cost you a little bit of money, but will make the consumers or the client super happy, you can go ahead and do that, and then you've just bought yourself a whole bunch of loyalty and goodwill, right? So you don't have to go back to them and say, I need $150 more or $500 more because I want to do this extra thing that would really help you.
Yeah, that we experienced that with you too. You did. She at the end, she's like, "Nah, no, I'm going to do this. It's not part of the scope of the work, but I'm going to do it anyway because it won't be that big, won't be that hard for me to do." And she did that as well. So definitely, yeah, when you have profit built into it, it's easy to be
Right.
generous when you're making money. Easy to be generous when you're making money. I guess that's the
That's right.
underlying rule, right? It's hard to be generous when you're not making money to begin with, or you're taking out of your the funding that your family needs. Because then it becomes not a job, or it's not a profession. It's something that becomes like almost like you're being used in a way in that way. So definitely, I think you have enough profit. Frank Blau could probably teach us a few things about that. You probably read about that, how profit is so important. Without it, we can't do those generous things for
Right.
people. Does that make sense, there?
Well, the funny
Uh,
thing about Frank is I co-wrote a book, Frank's biography with Ellen Rohr. And so both of those folks have impacted me. And that was about 7 years ago. And so, I have heard the mantra charge what it costs to be in business, figure out what kind of profit you want to make first, and then design your business around it and then be the best so that you can actually get it. You're worthy of it. But I have to say that until I went through this entire soup to nuts program, like it didn't click to me. It didn't. I mean, I understood it intellectually, but once I was through this whole program, I was like, now I get it. Now I get what a gift it is to both of us for me to give them everything that's possible, and then we can figure out what you know they can select the option that's best for them.
I mean, think about it, Helena. You kind of have you got it exactly in the right order. You had first Frank Blau. Here's the kind of profit we need to make sure we can serve everybody properly the right way with premium service. Then Al Levy, well, here's the process you do that. And then here's
Right.
Tommy Mello. Here's the way you scale that process. And then here's Joe Crisara. Here's the way you put it to action in the field. Seriously, you've got
Hmm.
like a master's degree in home service here. You didn't even
It's
realize you're going to get all
true.
that, right? So,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
super true. And I think the one thing that we talked about early on is that your system is applicable to any service business. So, I'm not a contractor, but all of those concepts that uh, that I learned by writing this book are applicable. Especially about how it's about the relationship, right? And it's about how people feel about you and their trust and your ability to help them make those difficult decisions without freaking out or getting all swallowed up by your own head trash, right?
So the options obviously are kind of like the center point of the program is that really pure motive service is about taking the time to create options for quality, reliability, safety, health, and customer service elements of things. What else? Well, anything else you saw? A lot of material in that book. How about when it comes to the personal connection element, like you just mentioned that, to get people to trust you, what were some of the most impactful things you when you were going through it and you created that material that was kind of insightful for you in that element of things with personal connections?
Well, I was really intrigued by the concept of magic moments and, the magic of magic moments. And when that is done, oh, I can tell you a great story about that. So I was in Target and it was clearly like a manager and a regional that were walking around trying to clean up the store. Um, and I just stopped and I said, I really want to say how much I appreciate all of the effort that you're making to make this a really enjoyable place to shop. And like they were stunned. They were, because this is retail, right? Where people are always yelling at them and uh
Yep.
and it was a really emotional moment right there with two people I didn't even know.
hmm
It was
and it
amazing.
gave them energy. It probably gave them energy, and gives
Right.
you energy too. I mean, that's the magic of it, right? It's not just you're just doing the other person who receives the magic moment, but when you did that, Alina, what was that for you when you made them feel good, saw that smile on their face when they were unexpecting it? What is the person who gives the magic moment? What's the phenomena you experienced?
Well, I think this is this opening of the heart, right? That human connection that is, we're such a transactional society now that when you actually make that connection emotionally with people by acknowledging them, by acknowledging that you see them and that you appreciate what they're doing. I mean, it's not anything that you can create in any other way, right? It's not anything you can manufacture except in acknowledging and recognizing people for the effort that they're putting forth.
Yeah, there's a element of efficiency because we can't spend too much time, but in the time we
Right.
spend, how can we make the most impact in that time we do have? Does that make sense there, Helena?
For sure.
It sounds like
Absolutely.
you impacted two employees at the start at the Target who were doing a thankless job of getting that store up to par, which is probably they probably thought, why me, right? Don't we have somebody else who can help us with this
Right.
thing, and then you come along and say that, they're like, yeah, it has to be me. I definitely they got the right person for this job now because even the consumers can see it, right? That's
Right.
amazing. So magic moments and making people praising the effort. What else? Anything else? What were some of the highlights that you kind of discovered as? And by the way, when Helena did the book, she didn't just do the book. Then we had to make sure it was good for the first edit and then a final edit, and then we did the Audible where she had to make sure even more editing to make sure that like it was actually readable because you got to make sure when you create the whole thing and say, can people actually read this thing? And the test was if I couldn't read it, we got to change some of it. So we did this. So this was constantly like putting
Yeah.
layers of paint and finishing a fine piece of furniture. She was getting it done that way. What were some of the things that were some of the finer points that you noticed as we kind of moved through that project a little further, Helena?
I think that the biggest thing is how everything kind of hung together. And and I think that was the thing that I felt the book did the best is that you had a lot of material that you were offering in a bunch of different ways and a bunch of different uh, educational pods. And it was really cool to see it all come together in one sort of manifesto of of what the entire system is. So that was a cool thing. And then the other cool thing was that I've been a long time um, student of positive thinking, and to be re-exposed to the success principles, for instance, that was really energizing for me. That the whole mindset aspect of it. So that had a big impact on me. And
Yeah, that is.
also,
Good.
go ahead.
No, you also got it.
No, I was just saying that had a huge impact on me. Just the principles behind success and the fact that you were willing to spend some time in the book um, setting people up for success and being honest with them about like what they're going to have to do to how they're going to have to change their mind in order to do what's in the rest of the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think when you went through the material, it was by your suggestion. When Helena arranged the book, she arranged it in a way that she took some of the small things we were doing and made them something. Brought them to the forefront, like the 4 B's of selling were kind of wired as the structure of the book, and the success principles with Jack Canfield and Jack. By the way, Jack Canfield goes back into Samuel Clement Stone and some of the
Mm-hmm.
forefathers of motivational thinking. All those Dale Carnegie and people like that. He served those people when he was around when he was younger. So definitely goes
Cool.
back into very very much goes back into time with that. And I think without doing that though, I think it doesn't kind of put the mortar between those bricks because the system has a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of bricks in it, but the mortar is all those things that kind of make it work with the you working on you as a person. Make sense there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think
Go ahead,
that's the
tell us
cool
more.
thing about people. Oh, well, I was just going to say, I think
Go
that's
ahead.
the
No,
cool thing about your in-person experiences too, is that people actually are able to get the feeling and they can benefit from your presence and the other folks that have made this journey so that they can get supercharged and it makes it easier for them to change in that respect because they've seen other people do it and they've seen the evidence, right?
how about with uh, the objection handling and things like that? I mean, probably maybe before you start writing this book, you might have looked like, oh my God, last thing I want to do is write about how salespeople operate. That's going to be it. It doesn't really appeal to me. But then at the end of it, what would you say? What your thoughts about that element of things and moving through resistance with consumers as opposed to what we were doing in the book? What were the things that your key insights there about how handling objections and that part of it was being taken care of?
Well, there's two things. Number one, I'll tell you a secret. I love sales, and I've been in like, several retail sales, and I always like outdo the manager because I just love people, and I'm a servant, right? I'm not a salesperson, and so this is in my DNA. So it's actually very exciting for me to go through the rest of the book and kind of see how everything unfolded. But in terms of objection, I mean, you made it very clear that it's your job to help people think things through, right? And and the way that you have people handle objections and all the materials there are are a roadmap to what you need to do to help people decide and make the commitment to do one thing or another. And that's what I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's like just part of the process to get the job to move forward, because that's where your service would stop. Otherwise, the service concludes. If the service concludes with giving a price and not doing the work or getting the job done, I mean, think of the work that goes into a proposal, even like the one you do, and then imagine doing all that and pouring all your heart and soul into what I'm going to do for this person, and then it stops at that moment where you don't handle the objections at that point. I can see that a lot of people who are really well-meaning people have probably had a lot of careers that have been sidelined or destroyed actually by not being able to get through that resistance. What do you think of that? What's your comments on that?
Well, here's the thing that really hit me when I was working on that section. And I think it was like the third section or second or third section when you really kind of like drop the bomb, like that was like the like if you're coming to the end, this is what you do. And so the concept was, okay, so here I have gone through all this stuff. I've thoroughly diagnosed the system. I've come up with all of these options. And now this person's going to go to someone else who doesn't care about them as much as I do, who is not going to put in the amount of effort that I put in to make sure that they knew all of what was going on with their system. And that's just I can't let that happen. Right. So that's what you kind of walk away from for the reason why to learn all of these different techniques that you can apply based on what you run into.
I guess that's where the be determined happens, right? Be determined to say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to hand this project over to somebody else. I'm going to take this project myself and get this job done. and I'm not going to be stopped by a little bit of resistance. I'm going to help people through that resistance, and in a way where they sell themselves. Does that make sense? I think overall the book, the way you put the book and the way you wrote it is really great, because really it's about the people selling themselves, not you having to really sell people, right? They're already sold before you get there, I always say. Uh, any other key insights you
Right.
have to share, Helena? What do you think?
Well, in getting ready for this, I remembered, I was thinking about you and Julie and how that you're enthusiastic, but you were enthusiastic buyers in a good way, right? And like you knew what you wanted and you were excited about getting, doing the best for this book because you had a vision for it, and you expected a lot. But I'm like, yeah, that's like my ideal client, right? Because that's what I bring to the table, right? And then I was thinking about the neutral and the negative buyers and the whole stop and continue technique and how that applied to my business, right? So I've had, like, I don't usually have a problem with negative buyers because like you said, they're easy. You just say, hey, maybe you're having a bad day, we should reschedule. And then the neutral buyer, though, is in my business is the most frustrating because they're the people who will have three conversations with you. And that's where I learned to say, okay, we've talked about this discovery and roadmap. It's X thousand dollars. What should we do?
Right.
Right. What should we do?
Put it on and let's see. If you want to move forward,
What
just
should we
tell me
do?
right now. I think always tell me no if you want to. I'll still be your friend if
Right.
you tell me. I'll still be
Right.
your friend if you tell me no. But if you want to say yes, we get started. How about we just do part of it and get started with that? I mean, really, that's what I always tell plumbers. Hey, why don't we just get the main part done and we can always upgrade later or something like that, right? You can do it way. Once they know the prices, that's really where it goes. That's really great. Well, I tell you what. That was definitely you. You typify the pure motive service, and you made our job, Julie and I's job, very easy. And I will say this: I think a lot of I hate to get you booked up too much, so I can't use you again because I'm thinking about writing another book because this one was so successful. I just give you a heads up on this, Selena. So the Amazon #1 bestseller, both Audible, book and everything. Not only has the book sold enough to where it's coming close to where it's break even with as Frank Blau would say, let's find your break even. We're almost finding that break even with just the book sales alone.
That's
But
fantastic.
the amount of clients we're getting, because they know the story now that we do, and
Yeah.
they say, I read the book and I'm ready to get the premium package. And so I can't tell you how many 2 or 3 clients a week tell us that they read the book, and as a result, they're ready to go forward with us before they even did. So the book is a great way to pre-educate the consumer
Yes.
on what's in our heart so they can see kind of insight as to who they're hiring. And they already knew me in a way. They were introduced to me in a very intimate way that they kind of know all the frailties and the things that are right with me and things that are I challenge with too. I mean, what would you think about actual contractors? There's a movement where I think contractors are also could or anybody who's in the service business could possibly use a service like yours where they say, let's write a book about the story of our company and things like that. What do you think of that? Is that too aspirational for a service contractor to say, maybe we should write our story so our community can kind of share in that information? What do you think of that?
Well, I think it depends on what the outcome is that they're looking for. Like if they're growing their business and they are looking to ultimately exit, it's really good to have that story uh, put down somewhere. But the consumer facing part of it would have to be a little different than what you did because you're selling B2B, you're selling business to
Hmm.
business. But a lot of these people who are growing businesses, they have a vision for what's going to happen after they have the business, buttoned up and handed off to a CEO and they're just in kind of an emeritus position. And so for that type of owner, absolutely. Because here's the other thing that a book does, and I know it did it for you too. I mean, you several times you said, I forgot all about that story,
Mm,
right?
right.
And so it's an opportunity for reflection and to kind of see where you've been. And sometimes that makes making the decision about where you're going next easier.
Good advice there. That's really good. And I think even people who are going to keep the business, though, if you have a family business, if your
Mhm.
grandfather and your father and you now run the business, I can imagine that giving that business, giving that book to people in your community, or maybe clients, doesn't have to be as big as 460 pages, like our book, but I mean, maybe you could do 150 pages on kind of like, what's the history, what's the foundation of this company, and what lessons did you learn from your grandfather and your father as they got you in this business? And I think there's an opportunity here
Yeah.
for service contractors to kind of go through a little lighter version of this experience that I have here, and then allow your clients to be pre-sold in a way, so your community can learn. Because really, what's the difference between a business that has legacy of several generations, and there's lots of businesses which are generational, where the community, the newer people who are now using a service, may not be tapped into all the things that you and your family have sacrificed to be able to serve that community. What do you think of that, Helena?
Well, I mean, that was very much Frank Blau's book. That was a biography, and it really took him from the beginnings to his development of Contractors 2000, and which turned into Next Star, and and kind of beyond. So that was really powerful for a lot of reasons, and I think that again. The one thing it would do is it would give the marketing department a lot of materials to work with in terms of positioning the company. So, I think anything that's retrospective and that brings you through to get you up to a 30,000-foot view, so that you can kind of see where you were and have to articulate where you're going is a good effort for sure.
Yeah, I've heard that term brand story put together several times. I think it says everything when you say that, the story of the brand in a way, that whether you do it in a paragraph or whether you do it in a small book or whether you do it verbally too, it's something I think everybody could, in a way, everybody's got a certain book inside of you, I think, that could explain things to the community that you're trying to serve. Just tell them know what's in your heart and what's in your company's heart.
Yeah, definitely. And I just think it's a worthy effort for anybody who wants to undertake it. And I would say, I know from being in this space for so long, probably almost 10 years now, starting with Ellen. Yeah, it's been 10 years. Like, I know how busy all of you are, like contractors, and so you have to get somebody to help you. It doesn't have to be me, but you need somebody. Like, oh, there's a funny thing. So, like, people say, oh, I don't want to use a ghostwriter. Well, why don't we call it Ghost Plumber? Because, right?
Uh-huh.
Because, you wouldn't try to fix your own complicated plumbing problem, right?
Yeah,
Or
well,
put in an HVAC system.
well, on top of that, you have the owner of the company who speaks for the brand, but I guess the ghost plumber would be the guy who does the plumbing in the field, right? He's not the owner, but he represents the owner
Right.
in a way, just like you're doing with me. It's not like Helena wrote the material, or it wasn't her
No.
idea. It wasn't. She took the ideas that we had and all the things that the story we have here and put it out there. But she was like the worker who actually did all that stuff. Because if I had to do it, I'd be on it for 10 years. But if that time I wrote the book, in 10 years from now, it would have been irrelevant because it would have been new things that we did, and it would have to re-include that again. So, Helena, I wanted to say thank you for your service for us. And if anybody does want to get a hold of Helena for her work at Executive Words, she does a lot of different services for writing, which is one of the, and she does it in a way that will tell your story from the heart, not just watered down version of it. She'll make it like we read What Should We Do? The thing I'm most impressed about was it sounds just like the way I talk. That was
Yes.
it was amazing. So congratulations on that, Helena. How do people get a hold of you to be able to utilize your service at Executive Words, Helena?
The best way is to email me at Helena, HELENA, at executivewords.com.
Great. Well, Helena, thank you so much for your service. And again, I would highly recommend Helena in any projects you have. But remember, don't get so busy that you can't help me still. Okay, that's one of my greatest fear is I still want to get the VIP package. I guess if I buy a better package, I go
No
to the front of
worries.
the line. I go to the front of the
I'll,
line if I get the VIP
you,
package.
don't worry. I've got you. You're all right.
Good, good, good. All right, everybody. Well, thanks a lot, Helena. We'll see you on the backside here. And anybody who wants to
Okay.
talk to Helena or myself, just go to our social media. We have on Facebook, We have our members group on Facebook. Just look up Joe Crisara on Facebook. I'll come up under many different situations there. You can see me in a direct message me if you want to, or go on our YouTube channel or our TikTok under Joe Crisara, and you'll see all of our videos and stuff like that. Thanks, Helena. We'll see you next time. Have a great one, everybody.
Thanks.